we cannot fail to remember or talk about their joy. A privilege and honor to have you, Barbara.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Interesting. Our dear listener from the other side of radio, on UBC Radio, on UBC Butebo, on UBC Match 100 FM, on UBC Western Nile, and Voice of Vundubujo. Those are the 5 radio stations that do cover UBC Ground Zero, and of course streaming live on YouTube. You can always visit our YouTube auto, and you'll be able to follow all the Ground Zero programs. Today we are talking about Day of African Child. We are commemorating this day, and we'd love to know what is this day about. The theme of this year is about education for children in Africa, and they say time is now. And we're going to look into this and sharing different perspectives from the guests that I have in the studios to understand more about this. And I've also come to learn that it is Uganda that is commemorating the continental commemoration of 2024 of Day of African Child. We're going to be learning a lot. If I can start with you, Joshua Chalimpa, to educate us about that and how relevant this is going to be, especially when we come to the African child and the education in this country. But before we go into education and the African child, for the first time listener of this program, maybe is our visitor who has had the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development, would love to be reminded or to be educated about your mandate. Joshua?
Comrade Tega, for giving me the opportunity to be here and talk about a very important aspect of life. This day really is very important on the African continent because this day on 16th June in 1976, young children, students in South Africa went to the streets of South Africa, and they had their demands. They had a number of issues they were raising. One of them is the poor education, poor standards of education in the country of South Africa, and also the language of instruction, which was Afrikaans, a language which was used by the white supremacists in South Africa and apartheid South Africa. And typical of the apartheid regime then, they used brutal force, and after a period of about 2 weeks of demonstrations, several and hundreds of children were killed by the brutal regime in South Africa. So in 1991, the Organization of African Union, then now African Union, decided that this is a day which should be commemorated across the African continent as a way of talking to the issues for which those students then in South Africa were talking about, were agitating for then. And that was the issue of education. I'm happy that the theme for this year revolves around the very issue, which is education, for which those students in South Africa were concerned about. I'm sure somebody will be wondering, because in Uganda, we chose that as we celebrate this year, the venue should be Kiryandongo district. And somebody will be asking, why Kiryandongo in particular? We, based on the figures, the statistics, according to UBOS statistics, Kiryandongo is one of the districts where children, where it is hard to live as a child in the Ugandan context. One, the statistics are showing that there are high rates of domestic violence, and I'm sure the audience will agree with me that a home with domestic violence would be a difficult home for a child to live in. There are also statistics about child neglect on the Ugandan, from the figures that we have. There are high rates of child neglect. I think Kiryandongo is only next to districts like Luwero and districts like Tororo, where these cases are high. So in the wisdom of the National Organizing Committee, it was agreed that Kiriandong be the venue for this year's commemoration for the Day of the African Child. Also, Kiriandong is a unique district because it's a district which is host to many refugees coming from different places of the world, some from South Sudan, some from Congo, and who all stay in Kiriandong. And as a result, there's a lot of mix of cultures, and it gives us the true African that we are talking about in the this year. So let's go back to the issue of education. Of course, from the Uganda perspective, a lot has been done, and a lot still has to be done. But we are on the right path on talking to the issues of education. One, there is the universal primary education in place, which was put in place by government to enable the children of this country at least attain education. Somebody can talk about the quality of education, but again, I said this is a journey that we have chosen to take, and I'm sure that we are making the right steps in the right direction. The other one is the issue of USE, Universal Secondary Education, which has been put in place. And also, we are aware that many of the children may not get the opportunity to follow the straight channel of P7, S4, S6 university. There is also programs to skill those other children of this country to get at least the requisite skills so that they can survive in the country or on their own. So there are a number of programs. Uganda is also, of course, party to a number of conventions. Of course, we are committed as a country to ensure that the children of this country can attain life that is commensurate to any child of this world. So that is already the progress which we are taking on, and we are happy that we are hosts to the African team. A number of students have come here. I'm sure they will be happy to interact with the Ugandan children and have a field. Remember, we are surrounded by countries with volatile security situations. In South Sudan, there are conflicts. Now in the North Sudan as well, there are conflicts going on. There are conflicts in DRC and many other spots of the world. So Uganda stands out as an island of relative peace in the region, where the children, as compared to others in the African continent, live quite well, although still we have challenges that this country faces to address the issue of children. That's what I can say for now. Thank you very much.
Interesting. Our dear listener, in case you want to be part of the program, you reach to us on 0776 511 426, 776 511 426, and I will be picking your calls in the second part of our discussion of this program. That will be at 11. So keep it in mind that I will be picking calls at exactly 11. Joy for Children. Babla, how do you come in when we are celebrating the Day of African Child and considering our theme for this year, which is about education for the African child, and we say we can't wait any longer, but the time is now?
Thank you so much. Good morning, our dear listeners. Joy for Children, as you hear the name, we are people who want to bring joy to all children. And normally our target age is from 0 up to 18 years. But because of our certain programs, we go ahead to up to 20 or 30. As Joy for Children, we have specific focus areas that we are working on, and majorly is on education as we're coming on board. For some of us, or for all children, I will not say that every person who's educated is jolly or has everything, but for a child, it deserves to be educated. We are major child rights organization protecting and promoting children rights, and we know that education is a fundamental human right and a key driver to social and economic development for the country. And yet there are many children who have no access or who have not even seen or received the quality and inclusive education. Normally we come in as a number of education under one theme, that is education. We have a number of programs that are targeting children both in schools and those that have dropped out of schools. We work in Fort Portal, where we have our major program that is targeting education, working with over 60 schools in the region, that is in Fort Portal and Kabalole, where we have role model teachers who want to have a good school. What does a good school entitle to? A good school must have good children, must have good
Why
teachers.
Fort Portal
Why Fort Portal?
if we could have that background?
Okay, Fort Portal is our base, where we started from as Joy for Children before we could explore or come to other districts in the region or in Uganda. It was one of the thematic areas that we wanted to come on board, where children were not having proper education, and our founder really is from Fort Portal, wanted to also have a feel of have quality, have inclusive education. But the education program has also exploded up to the northern region, so we kept expanding as the more resources we have. But basically we started from Fort Portal as the base, as also a field office, but later expanded up to Kampala, up to northern region, etc. What does a good school entitle to? And also, having a good school must have a good children who are well disciplined, teachers, resources, toilets, and also among others. Normally in these schools we have school clubs. What do they do in these clubs? They are for both girls and boys. How do you want to have a violence-free environment? Teach them about violence. I'll bring them how do you avoid violence, how do you prevent violence, how can you also be part of maybe you have seen your friend also exercising violence, how can you help, and what are those things that you can also able to stand up and be like, no, you cannot treat me like this, no, I'm not ready for marriage, I'm not ready for anything. So we as Joy for Children, we are happy that African Union has chosen the theme to be part of education, and we all believe that education is one of the key components to success. The other thing is also we work on sponsorships. Having our program on sponsorships is also one of the things, but it is something that has come up. We used to have it before COVID, but during COVID we had donors pull out, we had a little bit of in and out resources, so our program has come on board, and this is also one of the things that also encourages people to be educated. We might as well as do other programs like end child marriage, but we all know someone who has not been educated might not be confident enough to make a decision on who to marry, when they should marry, and if they should marry or not. So we have come on board sponsor children, both giving them scholastic materials, half payment of school fees, and also connect them to other donors or people who can sponsor them. And we're also calling upon more people who would like to sponsor children to also reach out to us, because we have a number of children who are also looking for sponsorship. And also we don't do education, like my colleague mentioned, we don't do education just in schools. We also concentrate on girls who have dropped or children that have dropped out of school who are living in their communities. These will also have clubs or safe spaces where they meet to learn different number of skills, for example in public speaking, building their motivation, and also how to stay safe even after schools, also bring up business ideas, and also build agencies on how they can also be strong until they are ready for marriage or until they are ready to leave their fathers' homes. The other thing is also on the economic empowerment part. This might not sound as bit as something that is too connected to education, but it involves financial management, financial literacy, bookkeeping, and we have done this in our regions of Kabalole, Fort Portal, and Chenjojo, where we have VISLAs. These are village saving and loans associations for both children who are 18 and above, and also for their teen mothers, to help them also have the business idea if they are not able to attain education, but there are some skills they can do on their own. They can save money and also have a little bit of what they can do in their lives apart from going to school directly.
Interesting. I am glad that you're serving the country in that capacity, and you have helped so many children to attain that very education, and that's why I had to bring you through to make sure that we track that kind of record, but also we encourage others that are walking your talk to reach out to the Ugandan children, and these are the African children that we are celebrating or commemorating for this year. Allow me bring in Dr. Luanga, who happens to be a educationist but also a researcher. And now that you're playing in another important role or being part of the stakeholder in the politics and political structure of this country, when we talk about the generation, because we take children to be the future of this country, the next generation, but also looking at the education system in this country, do we need prayers or we need to keep celebrating? Dr. Rwanga.
Yes, please. Thanks very much, Comrade Amon Batega, my fellow panelists, for those wonderful opening remarks and contributions. It would be a bit unfair if the historical role of Uganda is not pinned down to this cause of the South African political struggle. I wish you could borrow me a 2 or 3 minutes and I just cruise through it, because the culmination of the Soweto uprising...
You have your 3 minutes.
Yes, came as a result of all Ugandans being focused on it, and that focus did not just come out of blue. As you remember, when Musazi formed his political party, Uganda National Congress, it had a greater outlook to accelerate the decolonization and independence struggle, not only for Uganda, but for the rest of Africa. And when UNC merged with UPU in March 1960, the momentum, the focus widened. And when the focus widened, all the liberation groups, all the liberation movements in Africa had to read the manifesto of UPC and understand it as partners. And indeed, it is very, very important to note that it is our government, soon after independence, which offered South African freedom fighters passports to travel across the country and to articulate their issues. Again, it is our government which came out very explicitly and indicated that a Ugandan is free to travel across the globe except the Republic of South Africa and Portuguese colonies. This, in a way, it was drumming up that serious cause. And when it came to 1971 Chogam in Singapore, the Mulungushi Club, which brings together Tanzania, Zambia, Uganda, said we are going to put up a very strong fight in the Commonwealth and tell Britain not to sell deadly arms to South Africa. If they are to be allowed to sell those deadly arms will be pushed further northwards, and all the countries which are about to gain their independence, or have gained their independence, may see the independence struggles reversed. So as a result of that, we may have paid a price, as the Prime Minister of Britain, Edward Heath, said that some of the people who are talking tough, they may never see their way home. And this is when Idi Amin took over on 25th January 1971. However, having said that, we still see that Uganda did not retreat. It continued to push the agenda of anti-apartheid struggle, and I think at one time or the other, even Idi Amin demonstrated the bombing of Cape Town. That's why we have the name Cape Town in Gaba. So it was showing the momentum. Now, when the 1976 Soweto uprising happened, it was happening and building on the background which had been already established. And it was a turning point which now told the apartheid leaders that time is coming to an end. The children, the youth power, have gained the momentum to resist you. And indeed, the area they are resisting from is, as my comrade has explained it, Chalimpa, it was to express the education system, which should not be Africanized. They should remain with their education system, use their medium of communication, and enjoy and have that privilege. So that youth power was to influence things in the coming decades, such that now the white supremacists thought of a way out. And of course, you cannot leave out that mighty battle of Kwitokano Valley in Angola, which said that even militarily now, anti-apartheid, you cannot, apartheid forces, you cannot manage us. And on the ground, we are expanding. So having said that, indeed, since it is the Soweto uprising which has led to the commemoration of the African child, yes, the setup of South African education system by that time was bad. But much as it was bad, even today improvements are still going on. But since the black race had been marginalized from development, and they have only had opportunities of developing since 1994, when they formed the first multiracial government, a lot of gaps need to be filled in. That's why you hear that there is even black empowerment program. When you leave South Africa itself, even us across Africa, we have our own challenges. Of course, our colleague here, Mr. Chalimpa, has mentioned universal primary education, and has also mentioned universal secondary education. As UPC, we would like to add there a word compulsory. And if we add there a word compulsory, we want also to add there a word qualitative. Okay? When we can achieve that now, we can have a better balance. But of course, to have a qualitative education system in any country, it is not a walk in the park. There are a lot of issues you have to put into place. And one of the simplest issues to a layman, before even you go into higher technology or no technology, is the simple question: how is the relationship of the teacher to a pupil ratio? That is the starting point. And when you go for that starting point, you will find that we have not lived in that environment, because most conservatives would like 1 to 40. But countries which are excelling and they are having several skills they are teaching the children, they have moved from 40 to 25. Some are even aiming at 15 if it is possible. Okay? But you find that to have that of 1 to 40, it means that you have sacrificed a lot and you have planned for it and you are in for it. Then the other element which even yesterday disturbed a lot of my ideological class lessons is the capacity. Can we have a ratio of 1 to 1 in terms of textbook, a student and a pupil? Okay? Now you find that a majority of our pupils hardly hold a textbook because of the abnormal ratios. It is a ratio of 1 to 5, a ratio of 1 to 6, or none at all. Okay? To the extent that most of our friends, most of our children have never had that sort of privilege I had to have even my own sort of library at my desk, okay, and even in my dormitory, okay. To do all that, it means that we have to do a lot of planning. Even these books, we ensure that we are publishing them back at home, okay. There is a lot which goes behind the scene in planning. And at the same time also, the political philosophy, okay? Where do we want Uganda to be, okay? What type of a child did we want Uganda to produce? Is that child going to be a model for Africa or a model for LCA, Kaboja, where I come from? And if it is Kaboja, where I come from, what is that type of model, okay? Because now when you go back to Kaboja, where I come from, which is not very far from the capital, just 70 kilometers, you wonder whether this is a school or a home, whether this is what or what. You are just told, no, that is senior one, okay? That is what. So, the question you are trying to push for me, education is the changer, okay? And since education is the changer, the more, the better it is given to our children, the better the future is, okay? And there is no shortcut about it. And I can still add, there is no any single country in the world which is better than its education system. If you want to talk about Britain, just pull out their education system. If you want to talk about Japan, just pull out their education system. If you want to talk about Uganda, pull out the education system. It will tell you that there are international schools for the world to do. They will tell you there are super private schools for the world to do. They will tell you there are medium public schools for average parents. And they will tell you there are a majority of schools for the poor one. Okay? And once you put that on the weighing scale, then you have got the Uganda of Kololo, the Uganda of Muyenga, the Uganda of Kawempe, the Uganda of Water. Okay? But harmonization would be the best. Okay? And when now you go deeper, what goes on inside those four walls of the classrooms, or that wall of that wall, you will find somebody has carried his cassava for breakfast, somebody has carried his roasted potatoes for lunch, another one is going to have a chicken or good meal. And they are studying and they are going to compete in the same labor market. Yes. So harmonization would be the best.
All right.
Yes. Please.
Harmonization would be the best.
Yes.
Indeed, I take that, Doctor. And we continue with the discussion. Dear listener, this is UBC Ground Zero. We are live on 5 radio stations. UBC Radio in Kampala, UBC Butebo in Eastern Uganda, Magic 100 FM in Kampala, West Nile Radio in Arua, and Voice of Bundubujo in Bundubujo. Ampaira Monoteka is my name, and I have Joshua Chalimpa, PRO, Minister of Gender, Labor and Social Development. Barbara Namara is the Programs Manager coming from Joy for Children, and Dr. Christopher Luanga is the Head of Research, Ideology and Documentation coming from UPC. We are talking about education system in Africa and in Uganda as our theme for this year as we commemorate Day for African Child. Cross over to you, Chalimpa.
Thank you very much, our host, and I want to thank our professor here for the ideological grinding. I just want to do a comparison, between the apartheid South Africa and the Uganda of today. Now, whereas in the apartheid regime in South Africa, what we are talking about, the differences in the education system, the quality of education was state policy. The only policy that poor South Africans, blacks, would go to a certain type of schools. And when they go there, the language of instruction will be Afrikaans, because they were trying to racially assimilate them, to turn them into, to speak the Afrikaans, and not necessarily be the Africans that they were. Now, in Uganda, the difference is that in Uganda, they to provide for education for all and quality education. Of course, there are still issues that he raises, the issues of classes, because we are living in different times we are living in a market economy now, whereby there are things to do. Education system has been is private. You can have private. It has been liberalized, the system, and because of that, they are the rich who are going to very rich schools, which are viable, but there are also the poor who the government now, in its wisdom, through the UPE, said that everybody go to school and provided for UPE system. I think the issue should be, how do we improve the UPE school to be competitive compared to other schools where the private rich citizens are taking their children. So that's what I say, that there are still challenges. Of course, we also have to understand that Uganda is still quite a poor country. We can only cut the cloth according to the size of the country. And but the good news is that because of the positive policies by government, it also encourages other private players and also non-government organizations. That's why we have people like Joy for Children also making a contribution.
But Chalimpa, taking us back to the Soweto uprising, we are looking at 48 years down the road when the students took it to the streets, and we're also talking about 33 years down the road when from 1991, when the African Union designated or recognized 16th June as the Day for African Child. Have we really embraced the talk of those that demonstrated in terms of education system? Can we be defined by the education system, especially when we talk of Uganda?
I think, first of all, if you look at even where the demonstrations took place, since 1994, when the curtains for apartheid closed, there have been so many years. Still, they have not achieved. They are quite a big economy. Now I think they are the second biggest economy on the African continent, the first being Nigeria. They have not achieved even when they have a black president, from Mandela to the so many presidents who have been black. Now, I'm not saying that, of course, that should be a reason for us not working hard. That's where I'm saying that there are steps in the right direction that have been taken through the different policies like UPE, USE, and now we are talking about improving the quality. We are talking about standards. There's something to build on. So now, of course, my senior brother will say that even that was UPC inspired then, because the UPE has been an issue of debate. But the issue is, we have been in position to put in place good policies. Now it is the time to build on those policies. I have hopes. I have high hopes that as the economy grows, thanks to the oil, which should be out of the ground, I think with better planning, we should be having a better system that caters for all. Of course, even in countries like the US, or even some countries in Scandinavian, there are some children who don't go to school, or for some reason drop out of school. I think the government programs are well grounded to cater for all categories of children or of students. One, there must be out-of-school programs that can equip them, give them skills so that they can fend for themselves. I'm happy that these programs are in place. So the issue is, how do we expand these such that anybody can access them? There are also challenged children for some reason, either mentally challenged or suffering from some forms. Even these, it is the duty of government to provide for them, to provide for some skilling for them. Either they can do crafts, they can make shoes, and all these. But of course, Uganda has been acclaimed for having good policies, and we have the good policies. The issue is that how do we now make sure that these policies work for the citizens of this country.
But if the policies have really not picked up, we are talking about 25 to more years when we brought in universal education, especially in primary. But of course, we recognize the gross enrollment in primary schools, where we have increased from a total of 2.5 million, considering 1996, when we had the UPE, and also increased to 5.3 million in 1997. That is, we are talking about 1 year. We're talking about 1 year. But we still have a shortage of teachers. As the doctor did explain, that one teacher is teaching almost 3 to 4 streams. The schools are overwhelmed by the numbers. We don't have facilities. Where is the problem? If indeed we know that we can be defined by the education system as a country in order to move forward, why don't we prioritize this education, and we put all the resources necessary to make sure that we tap into the opportunities?
Comrade Butega, the situation we are dealing with is not static. It keeps changing. For example, the issue of the teacher people.
If it keeps changing, the also keep changing our policies.
That's why we keep, the role of government is to keep coming up with policies to address challenges as they come. For example, the issue of teacher people ratio, you cannot look at it from a Ugandan perspective. You have to look at it from the fact that the people have a freedom of movement. They can move to other countries and get jobs. I know that the Ugandan teachers, South Africa and countries like Botswana have been a destination for Ugandan teachers. The same applies also for health workers. The issue is that how can we be competitive such that we can retain our teachers in Uganda to work for us? That's the challenge that we have, because now we are living in a global village. The Ugandan teachers are known, even now, they are demanded for in China. For those who want to study English, like the Chinese want to learn English, the Ugandan teachers can go out and get jobs. They can go to Rwanda, they have gone to Rwanda. So the issue is that we need to come up with policies. Now the issue should be, can our economy compete with the economy of China in terms of retention? Should we now take that as an advantage and train more and more teachers, such that now even when some go, we have some left who can look after our children? So there are a number of things that come up, and we have to be sensitive and follow up the trends and develop appropriate policies for the benefit of all.
Interesting. Joy for Children, Babla, allow me bring you in that we commemorate this Day of African Child when we have distant areas in terms of children accessing those schools, where they have to travel long distances to reach to the nearest schools, which can be dangerous and discouraging sometimes. You are in this field as advocacy. How are you advocating that we really need to reduce on that and make sure that the children really access this education? But also pointing out to you that we are also commemorating the African Day of African Child when we have gender disparities. The girls of your gender face a lot of additional barriers, such as early marriages, gender-based violence, societal norms that prioritize so much of the boys than the girl or the gender that you come from. As using your platform to advocate, how are you able to help the girl child and the African child?
Thank you so much. Before I move to the question, I would also like to applaud the government for the good initiatives that are put in place to also support the education system. As much as we are trying to also say it is not yet there, but we know one time we will be there. Through the advocacy initiatives to also solve the distance, also have children with disabilities access schools. One is also have the government of Uganda has listened to the civil society sector. They have come up with schools that meant for children with disabilities in Uganda. At least I know about 5 schools that where children can access and are not also part of all the other children, and they are all included. The other thing is also to applaud the government on the inclusivity of teachers, where we have teachers that are meant for children with disabilities. This has not happened, has not been happening, or has been at a low pace, but for now, at least most schools we go to, we have a certain teacher or teachers that are meant for children with disabilities for inclusivity, much as there are not many. The other one is also have inclusive classrooms. To have classrooms that had steps now have a sloping area to have children with disabilities also access it. The other thing on how girls have been also underlooked or have not taken up education, one is also to uphold the government for bringing the girl child to the front. We have the 1.5 point at the university, and this has encouraged most girls to complete university. Also, basing from the last graduation at Makerere University, we had many girls graduate more than the boys, and also the PLE examinations were passed highly as girls were out competing the boys, which is good but also maybe bad for the boy child. The other thing is also on the policies that the government of Uganda has put in place. In 2020, when we had lockdown, we had so many girls drop out of school because of teenage pregnancy, because of ABCD, because they've been forced into child marriage. But we had the Ministry of Education come on board, have a policy or a guideline on having the revised guidelines on allowing these girls to come back to school and finish their education, which most schools have embraced and which has worked for the girl child also. Much as the girl has become pregnant, she can come back, she can give birth, come back to school and finish her education, which is also one of a plus to us that we are having more children finish school. The other one is also on the sexuality framework. How do we also have the issue of children know their bodies, know more information on their changes, know also how they are violated sexually, and also how to embrace some of their changes. We have seen the Ministry of Education, led by the First Lady, launch the framework, the sexuality framework, to also be integrated in schools. Much as we have studied biology, but there are some of these things that need to be incorporated at a lower level, and they are easier to understand by all. The other thing is, how are we using a platform to also advocate for the girl child? As Joy for Children, we have a number of initiatives to support the girl child, especially through our advocacy. We have advocated for the renewal of the national strategy to end child marriage. This is the strategy, or maybe a 5-year strategic plan under the Ministry of Gender, that gives a streamlined components. Maybe how do you prevent child marriage, what are the roles as a civil society, what are the roles of the other groups they play to all have a child marriage free society. So Joy for Children partnered with Ministry of Gender, advocated for the renewal of the national strategy to end child marriage for the year 2022-2027. And this strategy was renewed and was also supported by Joy for Children and other partners. The other thing, we are also in consultations with we have also undergone the sex offences bill. The sexual offences bill is one of the bills, or maybe laws, that directly addresses child marriage as a crime. We have seen all other policies in Uganda want to hide child marriage under defilement, under rape, under but they do not clearly state child marriage as an offense. So we are still advocating for the passing of the sexual offences bill, and for the past last year
That defines them that they're indeed Africans.
I beg your pardon.
That indeed defines them as Africans if they have not considered that as a serious, not when they're hiding early marriages to be part of the other cases.
Yeah, but it was presented at the floor of Parliament last year, and still it had a little bit of some gaps and was pushed back for consultations. We are still having consultations on that. As Joy for Children, I've also advocated for girls who are most girls get married or get pregnant and contract HIV, or maybe they have contracted the other diseases, but they are not being addressed directly. So we have integrated our programs to also have a component of HIV and AIDS, where we are looking at teenage mothers who are positively living. Teenage mothers are those who have given birth and they are positive. So we have one of our program in Chenjojo called Broom that is also targeting the mothers. Why do we have mothers? We have an economic empowerment with them. We have safe spaces for them. Most of them are stigmatized, where we also build their capacity, their confidence that as much as you're positive, you can still live a better life. It is not the end of life. We also do trainings with them, especially on nutrition, since they have children and they are still young, they might not feed their babies well. We have programs on SRHR, how they can prevent on having more children, and also male involvement. We know that a girl does not become pregnant for herself, so a man must be involved to also prevent child marriage. So we have a component on male involvement. I've actually gone ahead to form male action groups in our work or different areas we work in. For example, in Lila, Oyam, and Kole, and also in Chenjojo, where these men come on board to discuss what are those things as men we can do. If I have a woman who's living positively, how can I support? If I'm a man, how can we also engage in family planning? It's not family planning is always for a woman, it's for both of us. How can we raise our children together? So yeah, thank you.
Dr. Rwanga,
Yes, please.
before we blame so much the government and what the Chalimpa have done, what is the role of us as the civil society, but generally putting it down to the parent? I want to bring the contribution of a parent. Where do we come in? Because a parent is the first government at home. You have seen so many cases where government has been pursuing parents that have not taken their children to school. There's UPE here, schools have been opened, teachers have been paid. All the infrastructure and facilities, we may say they are not really enough, we haven't reached there, but for the few that we have, the parents have not really taken it serious, not to take their children. What is the contribution of our parents when it comes to education and empowering the children for the next generations, especially in Uganda?
Thanks, Comrade Yamani Butega. A parent has been very instrumental in the upbringing of a child and preparing that child informally for the education. Let us face the reality. Before we entered into this modernity, the first school at home was around the fireplace, and the elders were doing the necessary teaching. And indeed, they passed on the entire syllabus and they passed on the entire skills, such that by the time we are joining nursery, we know how to greet, we know how to feed ourselves, we know how to smile, we know how to laugh, we know how to run, we are energetic. That is a very, very big contribution the parent did. And the parent did not just say that I've now surrendered you to school. even the parent ensured that you fit in the dynamics of the school. However, where problems are coming from, and let us be very open about it, is that parent has handed over to the school what exactly goes on in the school. Okay, that is where there is a mishap. First and foremost, almost all these emerging African governments at independence staked in education, and they said education is key. What do? We don't have enough teachers. They even hired bazungus across the globe. For your point of information, even me, have been hired twice to work in Zambia as an expert teacher from 1989 to 2006, and New South Sudan from 2006 to 2009. Okay.
One would say, why did you leave Uganda instead of teaching our Ugandan children?
This is where I'm coming. This is where I'm coming from. Yes, I was appointed the official, and I started teaching at Namilyango College. But again, Namilyango College, much as it had that powerful name, a new emerging school in Indeje with its serious problems coming out of war came with better alternatives on the table. And the better alternatives on the table were all meals free, and you qualify even for transport, and you are regarded a senior teacher from the day you have entered the school until you leave the school. So we left the late Chibuka in Namilyango, and we crossed to Semutenga in Indeje. But that could not satisfy us, because overall now Semutenga could not make us much more happier. It was the government now to make us more happier. And when the government failed, a majority of our generations, we trekked for greener pastures. And where indeed I went, the pastures were very, very green, much greener than those I left behind in Uganda. This is when I was recruited now in Zambia, because I was qualifying for salary, I was qualifying for gratuity, I was qualifying for a holiday. I think every month I was saving about 3 days. And when you work for 3 years, those are over about 6 working months. So you find that those other countries which attracted us, they put a package on the table, okay? And they had their recruitment missions across Africa. Now for Uganda, if you are to retain your teacher, what package have you put for him on the table? You will find that when you are we use it to call ourselves blackboard heroes. When you are a blackboard hero in Uganda, even you will plead before a headmaster to give you kawunga to feed for your family. You will plead before the headmaster to give you beans to plead for your to feed your family. You will plead for the headmaster not to chase away your daughter. You are still handling school fees issues until we Ugandans come and say education is the future of our country. A teacher's position must be reasserted. Let a teacher also put on a brand new shirt. Let a teacher also enjoy himself. When we restore the life of a teacher with better remuneration, then the teaching profession will be respected. They will deliver. They will not even teach in several schools. Why should you teach in several schools when one school is catering for you? So our government should move an extra distance. This sort of benefits they give people in a cooperative world, and they become cooperative life, they should try to apply it. Yes, there is where they have done some affirmative action for science teachers. It is not enough, because when you promise me that you are going to give me 4 million, I want it reflected on the paper, and when I go to pick it from the bank, I pick 4 million. But now the contradiction is they have announced 4 million. When you go to pick it from the bank, it has been reduced to 2.8, 2.7. The 4 million has remained academic. Okay? So that one still causes more problems. So I would feel that the government should engage teachers, organizations, unions, and they discuss a decent package for a primary school teacher, for a secondary school teacher, for a university, okay? And in that package they are negotiating. If they don't offer accommodation, let them offer an allowance, okay? Such that a teacher, it is up to him. If his allowance is considered to be 50,000 a month, and he can find this another house at 40, that will enhance him.
Okay.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yes.
Our dear listener, this is UBC Ground Zero. We are live on 5 radio stations: Voice of Bundubujo, UBC Radio in Kampala, Magic 100 FM in Kampala, Butebo Radio in Eastern Uganda, and West Nile Radio in Arua. We are also streaming live on YouTube. We just put UBC Radio or UBC Ground Zero and you'll be part of the conversation. It is time now to call. After the very break, I'll be picking your calls and reading your messages. Keep them coming through on 0776 511 426. The number is 0776 511 426 is the number you're going to call or send on your messages. And after this very short break, I'll be picking your calls and reading your messages. And we're also going to be engaging Richard Rawhinga, who is right in Fort Portal, to give us that very background on what he thinks the government needs to do to engage our children in terms of education. And we make sure that we move together as a country and the continent of Africa, because we believe that education is the future and the generations to come will rely on the same. I'm taking a very short break, and when I return, I'll be picking your calls.
It's hot.
We passed it. We didn't know exactly what the problem was on the ground. There is no pretending about the effect of this thing. There's no pretending about it. Nobody should. It's a problem.
It's balanced.
This is not the stage at which you start planning to tax a commodity like coffee, especially from down there.
It's intellectually engaging.
The Constitution provides that the land must be registered under the customer tenure system, which is one of those that's recognized by the Constitution.
Ground Zero Season 2, live and syndicated on your public and national broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
This is Independent Sound.
UBC has 11 sister radio stations spread throughout the country to educate, inform, and entertain. Tune in to UBC Radio FM 98, your national radio station, Magic 100, where sports and music is our life. 87.5 Star FM in Uganda, 97.4 UBC West covering Western Uganda, 102 Mega FM in Gulu, 97 FM Butebo Radio in Eastern Uganda, 107.0 Bududi FM, 100.5 Nge FM in Kasese, 98.0 West Nile FM in Arua, Total Ray Radio FM 90 in Karamoja, and 93.0 Voice of Bundubujo. Now you're covered in your local language. UBC Radios, inspiring Uganda.
The Education Forum program. Education Forum, a platform for trends and developments in the education sector. We are your reference and reliable source of information. The Education Forum, right here on UBC Radio, inspiring Uganda.
24/7. Listen to UBC radio shows right here, right now.
Are you a Ugandan earning below 1 million shillings per year? Government of Uganda is strategically putting PDM for you to get you out of poverty. PDM is an initiative of the Government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform the lives of all Ugandans for better.
Get to know more about PDM in your parish by tuning in. We bring you experts to explain, clarify, educate, and interact with you on how to benefit from PDM.
PDM, my parish, my development, my life. UBC Radios, inspiring Uganda.
It's hot. We passed it. We didn't know exactly what the problem was on the ground. There is no pretending about the effect of this thing. There's no pretending about it.
Welcome back. Ground Zero Season 2 continues.
Welcome back from that very short break. Ampaire Amon Butega is my name, and we are live on clear on 5 radio stations covering entire Uganda. That is UBC Butebo in Eastern Uganda, UBC West Nile in Arua, UBC Radio in Kampala, UBC Magic 100 FM in Kampala, and Voice of Bundubujo. We are also streaming live on YouTube. Just put UBC Radio or UBC Ground Zero and you'll be part of the conversation. It is the time you call us on 776-511-426. Share your perspective, share your thoughts, raise any concern on what you think needs to be done to make sure that we promote the education system in this country and in Africa, to make sure that the future of our children, the future of our countries, the future of our continent, Africa, is secured.
Hello, UBC?
You are live and clear.
Yes, this is Dixon from Zambia, Chirombe.
Zambia, Chirombe.
Yes.
Yes, sir. All right.
Now, I picked the message from you, the sister who is with you here in the studio. Now, I would like to know, he mentioned the package for the teachers. The government has to do package for the teachers. Well, he mentioned from the primary, secondary, and the high institutions, and leaving out the nursery teachers out. Now, what is their plan for the nursery teachers, even though most of them are under private schools? And recently, the government had a program for the government schools to start nursery schools. Now, how will that accommodate the nursery teachers in this system? Thank you.
Most welcome.
Yes.
776-511-426 is the number you can call and be part of the conversation. UBC, Ground Zero.
Good morning.
A very good morning to you.
We are talking to Salma. I'm in Palsa.
Yes, Salma.
Okay. Talking of the education, according to me, it just needs the government to put a serious law over a serious issue. Because in my place, I'm seeing most teachers who are teaching in the government schools. They again the ones who are going to teach in private schools. I don't know about what brings that. Talking of the girl child, I don't think Walla Pasha is not part of Uganda. Because let me give us example. I can drop out of school, but no one will encourage me or give me advice that so long as I have dropped out of school, now you have to do this, you have to do this in order to make yourself to be safe. But in my place, I'm not seeing anything. So she will help me on that.
All right. Thank you, Sarah, man.
Bye.
Government teachers sometimes have the opportunity to find a green pastures in private schools. UBC Ground Zero.
Yes, I'm on. Good morning.
A very good morning to you.
Good morning to Doctor and the rest.
They are listening.
Well, Juma Busega here. Yes, for me, sometimes I'm going to talk today about meals at schools. Every year we'll hear a school kills those students at poison. You know, all these schools, security personnel, there are teachers who are concerned about the feeding at school. What happens when you are here, you're a head teacher, you're hearing, oh, you're a director of school, oh, you're an administrator, your student has poison. Two, natural hazard. Very many schools you will find dilapidated lightning arresters. Some of these lightning arresters, even they are hanging half of it at the wall up there. They have not touched the ground down. Now when the climate comes and the demand for its initial position, we tend to run nowhere. You might go to the Ministry of Disaster and Preparedness. You'll find that the even Ministry of Disaster is not prepared, fully prepared. Now, that one government, when exactly can we go and knock the office of Ministry of Disasters and Preparedness ready to serve the nation? We tend to run anyway when problems has come. But meaning that, for government things, they try to be active when an incident had occurred. We are good at comparing our system of Uganda and China, India, German, but let's first clean our home. Our home is dirty, very dirty, by corruption. And I'm very happy about the president, what he has tried, just trying For me, I always cry. Corruption kill development. Corruption bring more disasters. So if I'm seeing some people who are concerned, some lawmakers who are supposed to oblige, who are supposed to be exemplary to the citizens, they're the one becoming suspect. Is my happiness.
Okay.
But I'm pardoning the judicial. Should not be rushing to give bail. Yeah, I know by the law, by constitution, everyone, whoever is guilty, deserves to have a bail. But to me, I cry. We are bleeding, and I need someone to be like exemplary that once you are caught corrupt and the evidences are there, no bail for you.
Okay.
There I will see Uganda is okay. Thank you very much.
Most welcome, Juma, and greetings the people of Busega and around. Serious concerns coming from Juma, one of the prominent listeners of UBC Ground Zero family, and is concerned about the meals at school, natural hazards, how can we manage them. Even the ministry that is responsible for disaster and preparedness is not always prepared to manage such. Interesting. 776511426 is the number you can call on and share your concerns or perspectives or perhaps your experience, especially on the African child and education system in Uganda and Africa. Allow me use this very moment to go through your messages that are coming from the other side of radio, especially those listeners that are part of us. Sam Muhesi says, our teachers are not motivated. Our teachers are not motivated. Like the former teacher, Dr. Luanga, has testified that before has testified. And before government prioritizes teachers, our education system and education in this country and the future of Uganda is still in God's hands. All right, that is Sam Hesi. Someone says this is James Ogwanga Peters, listening in from Nagulu, and says that degree in Uganda is considered a certificate. In developed countries, where does this leave our education system? That's why people who have money have embraced international schools. They know they are paying highly, but they are paying something that is assured that it will be compared to the developed countries. Omwavu wa kufa. All right. The government has really tried looking. This is Ben Okaringa. The government has really tried looking at the 73% in 1 year from that is we are considering 8.6 million students that were enrolled in UPE in 2023, according to Uganda Bureau of Statistics, considering to the 2.5 million in 1996 when UPE was introduced. This is a big transformation in Uganda, and it must be attributed to government. Thank you, Ben. Keep your messages coming through on 077-6511426, and I'll be able to read you those messages or pick your calls. We are connecting with Richard Ruwahinga, who is right in Fort Portal, to share his experience when it comes to education and embracing the African child and empowering the African child. Messages coming through, and I'll get back to the studios to answer those concerns, and then I'll when we get Richard Rauhinga is when I will go back to the studios to answer some of the concerns. This is UBC Ground Zero. We are live on UBC. You are live on UBC Radio.
Yes, please.
This is UBC Ground Zero.
Yes, please.
If you can, a very good morning to you. If you can introduce yourself to the people of Uganda who are part of us from the other side of 5 radio stations that are tuned in.
Yes, good morning, listeners. Richard Rwabuhinga is my name. I am the district chairperson Kabarole, but also president of Uganda Local Governments Association. I stay in Kabarole, Fort Portal. I'm glad to be part of this show this morning.
Interesting. On this very day, we are remaining with only hours to commemorate the Day of African Child, and we're looking into the education system in Africa. And Uganda happens to be the host of the continental commemorations of 2024. As a local government leader, as a citizen, as senior citizen of this country, but also a parent, how do you consider this when you hear that? How do you perceive it in your own perspective?
First of all, the NRM strategy of transforming this country has been anchored mainly on 4 pillars. And these are industrialization for job creation and increased production and productivity, having a healthy population which is productive, and then education for all. I'm therefore happy that this year's theme, as we commemorate the Day of the African Child, which is hosted in this country, we are focusing on education for all, and the time is now. To me, this is very relevant and timely, because it comes at a time when, as a country, we are celebrating the key achievements of universal primary education. We are celebrating the achievements of universal secondary education, and the UPOLET, the equivalent of A-level, And the government of this country has put in a lot of money to enable our children to attain education, especially in the government grant-aided primary schools. Now, there has been a serious debate about whether, when we talk about education for all, we mean free education. The answer is yes and no. Because the Education Act of 2008 provides for the roles and responsibilities of each of the stakeholders in the education value chain. The parent has a role to play, the teacher at school has a role to play, and the child, the pupil, who is our center now of focus, has a role to play. For a child to be successful at school, he or she must be fed, must be properly dressed in uniform, must carry scholastic materials, and no doubt this is a role of a parent. And therefore, focusing on education for all, I would be hesitant to talk about free education, but I will talk about a shared responsibility in as far as the education of our children is concerned. But our key role, what is our key role here? Our key role as parents, our key role as leaders at all levels is to ensure that children access education. Children go to school, children remain in school, children complete school. You will recall, moderator, that during the times of COVID-19, when we had our children leave schools and go to remain at home with their parents and guardians and foster parents, it was a calamity. The children were raped, were defiled by their own relatives, by their own parents, by their own neighbors. And therefore, for a child to go to school, for a child to remain in school, it kind of cushions this child against all the forms of abuses and is more safe and secure at school. But certainly projecting into building a sound human capital base for this country through education for all. I therefore emphasize on this eventful day, as we celebrate the Day of the African Child and being the continental host, that we should have our children enrolled in all our schools. We should have our children remain in school. we should enable our children complete school. In completion of school, we are not only talking about the universities and the tertiary institutions, no, we are talking even about skills, the skills component. Of course, as a country, we have discovered that what our children learn in our schools presents a mismatch with what the job market requires. The job market requirements, the 21st century skills, the effective communication, the emotional intelligence, and all these other skills are not the ones that we are imparting in our schools. What brings food on one's table is now the skill one possesses in his or her hands. And therefore, as we emphasize the theme of education for all, let us not leave behind the skilling component, because it is a key factor that brings food on people's table, but also answers the human resource deficit which we do face as a country.
Chairman, we have a challenge of school dropouts. We are talking about 45% of primary school children drop out before completing their education, and in secondary it is about 30%, and the most affected are girls, who are more likely to drop out school of even next term, as we talk about. How best can we work on this, and what is your role as the local government leadership to embrace that and make sure that children indeed keep in schools?
As local government leaders, I would really make this very passionate appeal. One, as a parent, but two, as a leader, that we should raise to the occasion of mobilizing all our children of school-going age to be at school. These children reside in villages, and in these villages, there are LOCs. But even before we go to the enforcement part, can we use our meetings as a means of sensitizing our people? In the preamble, when I was talking about the NRM strategy, of course, championed by His Excellency President Yoweri Museveni, is to have everybody enroll at school. But some of our parents have not realized the importance of this. Others hide in poverty. We are poor. True. Each one of us cannot have enough. If we had enough, we wouldn't be working. But the little that we have, let us invest in the future of our children. And the best investment we can give is taking these children to school, ensuring that they remain in school, ensuring that we provide for their needs, ensuring that these children complete school. Why is a girl child dropping out? Lack of menstrual pads, lack of these pads they can use during their monthly periods. And because they don't have those, they drop out of school. But even going home, you find that they are busy in other things, but talking about school, they say, no, we are lacking the pads, and therefore we cannot go to school. I'm happy. Mama Janet Kata Museveni has been a champion among the other partners of providing reusable pads, of teaching these children to make their own pads that are reusable. Because this has been a key issue among the girls. They drop out of school because they lack pads to use during their monthly periods and the rest. We are saying that let us be innovative. Let us plan to help our children, especially girl child, to remain in school. But also, let us look at our girls as girls, not as brides. Because in some cultures, they marry them off at a very tender age. Those you are saying drop out, they drop out because of forced early marriages, which is a custom in some cultures in this country. And therefore, as a local government leader, but more importantly, as a parent, I implore, one, the parents to look at education as an investment, not only for their children, but also for themselves, because it forms a very big insurance in the future when you have a child who has completed school and has been useful. Two, the population. Let us be supportive of our children to ensure that they enroll in school and they keep there and we support them. Three, let us look at these girls as girls, not as brides to be married off. Let us treasure that the value addition we give to these girls through education makes them better and useful citizens tomorrow to themselves and to the country, rather than marrying them off at a tender age and killing their potential. But finally, let us, as local government leaders, mobilize our parents, sensitize them about the value of education, support them to keep children at school. And maybe when all these fail, then we go for enforcement and say it is by policy that every child of school-going age must be at school.
I understand that you are the current chairperson of Uganda Local Government Association. I would love to know how you are going to use this very big platform for the next years that you are still occupying the position. What are your strategies to practice in regard to child welfare and protection?
Apart from being a district chairperson and the president of Local Government Association, by training, I'm a teacher.
Interesting.
And therefore, I know what I'm talking about in as far as supporting the education of our children. And I use every occasion in the district and through the country for the meetings that I preside over and those that I attend to root for the support of the education of our children, especially the girl child. I have used every opportunity to do that. We are having our annual general meeting in Lera next month. We are doing the same to ensure, and we are running the support from our colleagues and partners in the local governance to ensure that we support the cause of our children being in school, going to school, staying in school, and completing school.
Interesting. Time is not on my side, Chairman. Maybe I can request you to give your parting shots in this regard.
Just to make a very passionate appeal to every Ugandan, the parents, the leaders, and all stakeholders to embrace education for all, support our children to remain in school and complete school, and use every opportunity to provide for the needs of our children, especially girl child, but as well as the boy child, so that tomorrow we have better citizens who are educated and who can participate in the socio-economic transformation of this country.
Most welcome, and we must thank you for making it a point to accept to talk to the people of Uganda on this very platform.
I thank you.
Reaching to us from Fort Portal is Richard Rwabhinga, the LC5 chairperson, Kabarore District, and he happens to be the chairman of Uganda Local Government Association, conveying to the listeners and to the people of Uganda about the right and also the importance of safeguarding the children's rights and the role they can play on UBC Ground Zero, and it was a privilege talking to him. Allow me go back to the studios. I'm afraid time is not on my side, but I understand we're going to use the remaining minutes to answer all these concerns. My guests in the studios, you must have heard the people of Uganda who are part of us from the other side of radio, and also we had to connect with the local government, where most of the schools and the children are, and he happens to be the chairperson of LC5 Kabarore. You must have heard him very well, and the chairman of Local Government Association. We had the messages, we had the callers. I will start with you, Charimpa. I come to Dr. Luanga and later on Babla.
Comrade, there were a number of callers indeed, but I'll just sieve out a few issues that have been raised. And I see they are all leading to one issue. The issue is who is the teacher that we have in this country? How do people become teachers? We have a researcher here, Mr. Luanga. Maybe we need to do research. And the topic I'm thinking of is do the teachers who are conscripted into the education system, as compared to teachers who pay in private institutions, who are the best teachers? Because I find that many people become teachers maybe when they are not willing to become teachers. For example, it was not their calling. Somebody had wanted to be probably a lawyer. They did not get the marks, and then they are admitted at university to do education. Can they be the teachers that we need in this country? So because I see that even with the pay, because I don't know, because teachers in this country used to be very proud back then. They did not have much. They probably had a house and they could afford school fees for their children, and they were respected in society. Now, some teachers are always demanding for money. Now I'm speaking now as a stakeholder in this. In my private capacity, I also own a school, so I know what I'm talking about. The love for the profession with our teachers, vis-a-vis issues of pay. I want to believe that there are quite a number of teachers who even with higher pay, and I heard Mr. Lwanga was talking about that when they are promised 4 million, they want it to be to come as 4 million. So they don't want even to meet the obligations of paying tax. They don't want to make contributions even to their teachers' union. They want it as such. But what about teachers in the arts whose salaries were not increased? And for them, they are yearning to at least be at the same level with the science teachers, but they continue to teach. So this is the kind of teacher I think would be the best for this country. Now, the other one is the teacher is just one part of the bigger circle in the education system. They are the parents. Recently, the ministry was again at the helm of organizing the Day Against Child Labor, the International Day Against Child Labor. And the issues that were coming up...
That was on 12th?
Yes. And the issues that were coming up, again, were here at Mestil in Kampala. And the issues that were coming up were the issue of many children now who are involved in activities to do with child labor, and they are in the agricultural value chain. These ones, like in the parts of Soga, are cutting sugarcane. This is not to say that there are no universal primary education schools in the region. There are also schools, there are also children in western region, in the areas of Kawarore, working in the tea sector. They are there, they are not going to school, but they are born of parents. I don't want to believe that they are orphans, but the parents have taken this as a choice. They don't see the value in taking the children to school. So there are a number of cases. So we have to interrogate all these issues. One, I think I agree with Mr. Lwanga here that probably education should be compulsory, because I know that in some areas local governments have taken it serious. I'm glad that we had online also the chairperson of the local governments. There are districts which have gone ahead to make ordinances about education, whereby, for example, it would be illegal. The district would not tolerate parents who keep their children at home instead of taking them to school. So that is again the responsibility of a parent. Now, but of course, there are also the responsibility of the community. We come from a community, we don't come from a lone island. What about the LOCs who are seeing these children loiter around, some of them selling eggs, selling sweet bananas, when it is time for going to school? Again, we need to oblige the local government system, the LOC system, to ensure that all children of school-going age are supposed to be at school. So this is what I want to say, that it takes for all to ensure that we achieve the education we want for our children.
Everyone must play their role. Dr. Lwanga?
Yes, please. Thanks very much, Comrade Amon Butega, and the callers and fellow panelists. Yes, the education issues cannot be handled and solved like one single bullet you can fire. There are some gray areas which the government should come in and guide. For instance, one concerned person from Zambia Chirombe said, but we have talked about primary, secondary, university, and we have left out pre-primary. Indeed, pre-primary has been almost left to wilderness, and we tend to not to understand its contribution. Its contribution basically is to enable a child from a home know how to relate with the neighbors, know how to relate in a bigger environment, a bigger community minus crying. But now when you go to most pre-primaries, they have made them super academic. A kid in pre-primary nursery will be expected to count to 20, to 50, to what, okay? And all sorts of things, and you will even see graduation ceremonies for various grades. That is not the real thing. When I was
they
doing...
have crossed the line.
Yes, when I was doing my pre-primary with Mrs. Kasozi at Mugongo Church of Uganda, we are even knocking off at 10 a.m. By that time, they know our brains are tired. But now, these kids in pre-primary, they are pushed even to afternoon, and they call them daycare, what have you. So there, the government should step in and issue fresh guidelines. Then, of course, the salary for pre-primary used to depend so much on the people who are behind the pre-primaries. You cannot get it better, though we are lucky that now there are good courses for pre-primary teachers. These would help in much. And when you have a good certificate, a good diploma, you are paid handsomely. Then, of course, the other element which has come in is to try to think how serious a teacher can be. Should a teacher be restricted to a private school or to only a government school?
You've heard that in some parts in Palace and the neighboring districts, the government teachers finding some
I would try to
opportunities in private schools.
I would try to explain to you this thing properly, that when we are the pioneers of A-level schools that were commissioned by the second UPC government when they realized the manpower needs, and I was attached to Lubiri Senior Secondary as one of the pioneers. But almost all these pioneering schools lacked the technical manpower, and we had to depend on some of the university tutors or lecturers to come and beef up. So where it is possible, and you can acquire some manpower either from a private school or from a government school or from a university, let it be organized systematically that it rhymes with the timetable of other institutions. Because at the end of the day, it is Uganda we are helping. And this sort of money you get when you do, we usually to call it kasamvu, can it make you keep around in the profession as you wait for a better opportunity.
Okay.
If it is not there, it can be very unfortunate. Then our friend has talked about, I don't want to be an alarmist. This sort of poisoning we have in schools, it is merely food poisoning. We have so many companies or organizations milling, but their quality may not be so good. So let headmasters try to identify those which have established a mark. I will not mention their names because I would be undermining others.
But you also know that with those established companies come with a cost, and which cost some of the schools may not be able to meet.
The schools need actually to negotiate with them, because most of these companies which are milling our posho, our maize flour, they are just assured of the market, and they know when the market for the school fees has been paid. So they are patient enough, they are very sure, but they should shift away from these which are not yet established, because those which are not yet established, They will not even have well sorted out beans, ground nuts, and what have you. And in the end, we can have a complication.
Doctor,
But
we also had a concern from James Ogwang Peters, who had a serious concern that a Ugandan degree is equated to just a certificate when you cross the borders, especially in developed countries, and posed the question that where does this leave the education system of this country? If those we call professionals are not considered professionals when they go outside.
Unfortunately, the education system I participated in as a student and as a teacher, we had all the facilities. These days, we are starved a bit of the facilities. Where we are supposed to do more of practicals, we do more practicals based on theory. But if we are to do our job, a degree is a degree. A certificate is a certificate. A diploma is a diploma. Okay? Let us try to find out. Where I'm more concerned is that the schools now have been told that, please, can you introduce computer because it is the modern trend we are in? Can you introduce science laboratory, lab science subjects? Some schools are handicapped. But where they are handicapped and there is a neighboring school, let them have a working relationship. I used to be a very good football fan in Nachivugo. But more than 3/4 of the Kampala-based teams, their home ground was in Nachivugo. Okay? You could not find that Express is quarreling over Nachivugo. Nachivugo Villa is quarreling over Nachivugo. Why do football teams manage to use the national stadium amicably? Okay? And the schools cannot share their limited scarce resources. We need this Ujama. Okay. We need this Harambe spirit until one takes off.
Thank you, Doctor. I will give you time, if type that allows. Barbara, you've heard also the people of Uganda. Do you have in any way any response to their concerns?
Thank you so much, my fellow panelists and our moderator. I've seen the question of teachers being brought up. I want also announce I came from a teacher's family where my father is a teacher, my cousin is a teacher, the sisters of my father are teachers, the brothers are teachers.
How did you miss becoming one?
And I'm also a trained teacher, a profession teacher.
Okay.
But I taught for some time, but I also ended up diverting. But not because of the resources. But
which level are we talking about?
Secondary.
Secondary.
Yes.
All right.
However, the background, most of them are primary teachers. And the issue of salary and also resources, I do not want to drain so much on it because when I was studying at Nkozi University, becoming a teacher, my father told me, why do you want to become a teacher where they give you less money? And I asked him, if you earned less money, how come you taught me in the best schools and I'm at the best campus and I'm becoming a teacher? Where did you get the money?
Interesting.
And he laughed. He told me it's my personality. So all I also want to say, it's someone's personality and character. We all don't have enough even in our families, but we live by our means. So why can't we also utilize those means to help the children of Uganda or of the country to come and be in our shoes as they also help the next generation. The other, what I also want to mention is on the issue of the natural hazard. Someone said, I don't know if it is still going on. Some time back, there were inspectors inspecting schools with lightning. If they did not come to the district, or you see a school that does not have a lightning, I don't know, the arrester. Approach the DEO, go to your LC and report this is against one of the government laws. It is likely to harm our children if an earthquake comes. Because I remember the government of Uganda was moving around and all schools were procuring these lightning arresters. So if you know a school or your school in your community does not have one of the lightning arresters, please reach out to the authorities. You can actually even go to the headmaster himself directly, tell him this is happening and it's not right. The other one is facing violence, but I think it is food poisoning. And how can we solve the food poisoning? We have so many people who are supplying the foods. For example, you might have some students or pupils whose fathers own gardens, whose fathers own some factories or something like that. Because I know my uncle used to supply matoke for one of my cousins to go to school. So in the long run, he never used to pay school fees because he used to bring matoke and beans to the school. And in this way, the school would also reduce the money they are spending on buying food and also on having the safety.
I'm afraid time is not on my side. I will request you to give your final comments and parting shots regard to our discussion today.
Thank you so much. I call upon parents to harmonize or to also be in the shoes of themselves. We are all here because we went to school. So do you want to see us die and leave a blank space, or you want to see new people come on board? Invest in education because it is a key to success. Keep girls in school, keep children in school, and avoid violence against children.
Interesting. I'll be indebted to the people of Uganda if we don't update them about the D-Day, which is going to be tomorrow, and the activities that are going to take place, but also how are we going to commemorate this day, who is invited for this day, and I will request you, Chalimpa, to sum it all, especially on tomorrow's activities. But before you come in, let me use these seconds to bring in Rwanga to give his parting shots, and then I will give you the remaining minutes as you update the country, but also give your final comments. Rwanga, in seconds, sir.
So very much, Comrade Amon Butega. Our fellow penalist hinted that UPC may want again to draw credit over pre-primary education. Indeed, when you look into the manifesto of UPC or policy statement revised in March 1962, number 16, it advocates for free health, free primary education, maximum employment, and plenty of food, as we are promoting welfare state doctrines. Much as we may not have achieved it in our time, whoever has achieved it in this time makes the grand visions come out very, very clearly, and we remain with the challenge of how best we can improve on it. Indeed, education is very, very important, is very, very vital, and it is a changer. Once we have invested heavily in education, whether girl child, girl boy, our future is more certain, is more guaranteed. And the more you have an educated population, the more you are going to have an assured economic growth, an assured economic development, and even understanding of the society and the appreciation of the society. It becomes much, much easier. Whatever you want to project as a country, push it into the education system.
Okay.
Once you push it into the education system, then it is easier to consolidate it. And once you have consolidated it, then the sky is the limit. But where we put a lip service in education, it is very difficult to realize our ultimate goals.
All right.
Okay, as a nation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rwanga. We hand over you the microphone. Chalimpa, as you update the country about the day of tomorrow.
Thank you very much. And maybe before I go to that, just one on the issue of standards. For me, my appeal is that for the other organs of government to also do their part. For example, we know that we have the Uganda National Bureau of Standards. I know that there are cases where Ugandan maize, for example, has been impounded, even in countries which are less developed like South Sudan, where they say that their aflatoxin is discovered. It comes from the post-harvest handling and things like that, and also from the places where the maize is being made. Whose duty is this? It is the duty of the Ugandan National Bureau of Standards to ensure that we have food which is of quality for humans to consume. Because as a lay person who has a school, it will be difficult for you to look at maize flour and see that this is dirty or clean, which poses a problem. Now, Ugandans, we are hosting the rest of Africa. I know that there are delegations coming in from Zambia, from the African Union in Ethiopia. Last year, the celebrations were in Zambia. There's a team coming from Zambia. There are many students and leaders coming from the rest of Africa who are joining us for the celebrations for the Day of the African Child, which is taking place in Kiryandongo district. There are also, of course, Uganda has a rich culture, cultural diversity. There are a number of things that are happening at the venue, and where the key people who are the hosts, the Ugandans, should be the first to be part of the crowd, such that we give our usual hospitality to the guests coming. I told you that Kiryandongo also has a representation from many other communities. You have Sudanese, South Sudanese, you have people coming from Sudan North, you have people coming from DR Congo, you have people from Burundi, Rwanda, and the rest of the countries that are neighboring us, including Eritrea. All those ones converge in Kiryandongo as refugees. Of course, Uganda has the biggest refugee population on the African continent. We have close to 1.6 million refugees in this country. We are acting the Pan-Africanist role, and we are providing our little resources and sharing them with others. So Ugandans, I want to appeal to everybody to please join us as we commemorate the Day of the African Child. And I want to say again that indeed there is some progress that has been made. There are different policies that have been put in place, which we need to build on to ensure that we have a better education system in this country, because we know that the future of this country lies in the capacity of our children, which capacity we have to develop through education. Thank you very much for hosting us.
Thank you too for making it time to come and talk to the people of Uganda on UBC Ground Zero, which is always live on 5 radio stations and streaming live on YouTube. And we must thank you, our dear listener, for being part of us from the time we started this program until now that we have to end it. For the other programs to come through on UBC Butebo, on UBC West Nile, on UBC Magic, and Voice of Bondovujo, and here on UBC Red, George Ngobi will be joining us with On the Journey. It was a privilege having you, Chalimpa Joshua, who is the Head of Communications or Public Relations Officer coming from Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development, for making it a point to come through on this program. And it was also a privilege and honor to have you, Dr. Christopher Wanga, Head of Research, Ideology and Documentation, coming from Uganda People's Congress. And it was also a privilege and honor to have you, Barbara Namara, coming from Joy for Children as their program manager. And also we had a privilege and honor to have Richard Rwabuhinga as the LC5 chairperson, coming from Kabalole district, and is the current chairperson of Uganda Local Government Association, who helped us to understand or bring the bigger picture of the local government. And we've been discussing the Day of African Child, where we are saying that education is important for our children, to make sure that we build the next generation and the future of this country and Africa. And we're saying the time is now. And we've heard from our discussion that everyone has their role to play. Before we blame the government, what have you done as a parent? And before we blame the parent, what have we done as teachers? Everyone has the role to play to make sure that we all build this country together. It has been a privilege having you on the program. Until next Saturday, same program, same stations. And the repeat of this program is always on Sunday from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. and on Voice of Bondobujo the same time. A privilege in having you. From me and the team, it is a good afternoon and a good evening for tomorrow's repeat. Thank you, and most programs coming your way. I pray you don't go away. For good and my country, I'm Pedro Amon Ortega. Allow me to sign out.
That was Ground Zero Season 2, a production of Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, UBC, inspiring Uganda. It's hot.
We passed it. We didn't know exactly what the problem was on the ground. There is no pretending about the effect of this thing. There's no pretending about it. Nobody showed. It's a problem.
It's balanced.
This is not the stage at which you start planning to tax a commodity like coffee, especially from down there.
It's intellectually engaging.
The Constitution provides that the land must be registered under the customer tenure system, which is one of those that's recognized by the Constitution.
Ground Zero Season 2, live and syndicated on your public and national broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
The Education Forum program. Education Forum, a platform for trends and developments in the education sector. We are your reference and reliable source of information. The Education Forum, right here on UBC Radio, inspiring Uganda.
Independent sound. UBC has 11 sister radio stations spread throughout the country to educate, inform, and entertain. Tune in to